I was, at the time, ministering in Australia in the military. So my role was to oversee chaplains within the Defence Force here in Australia. And I had a job to go down to the south of Australia and work my way up the east coast visiting chaplains. And I started this journey not feeling well. I had a high temperature actually. It wasn't enough to put me in bed, but enough to make me feel a bit uncomfortable. So I did a silly thing. I didn't pray. I went to the pharmacy and bought an over-the-counter typical tablet that probably every house in Australia's got a packet of, very common. You don't need a prescription. I didn't think about it really. I just bought the packet, took a couple. Pretty much every day I was taking these just to keep the temperature down. I got home on a Friday at the end of my journey and realised I was very sick. I was weak, I collapsed into bed, my skin had gone yellow, my eyes were yellow. Actually that night they took me away to hospital in an ambulance and I nearly died that night. My blood pressure was 80/40. They did a lot of tests and in the morning the doctors came to me and said, well, we don't know what's knocked your liver out, but your liver has stopped functioning and we've tested it for everything that we know will stop a liver and you're fine. We just don't know what's happened. But unless we can find you a liver in the next 2 or 3 days, you probably won't be with us. One of them turned around and he came back over to me and he said, you haven't taken such and such a tablet, have you? I said, sure, I had a high temperature. I bought some from the pharmacy and I took a couple every now and then. I said, well, thank goodness we know what caused your liver to fail. But it's no help to you. We can't do anything for you, but that's what caused it. He said it's the worst cause of liver failure in the Western world. Later on, they came back to me and they said, we'd like to try an experiment. They had all their instruments there to monitor my health as they did this. And just after 8 o'clock, they hit the switch. Immediately, I knew I was dying. I could feel it. And then I fell unconscious. I went into shock. And for about 55 minutes, I was out of my body. And I knew I had to concentrate to get back, or I never would. And I remember coming back to my body and just sliding into it. I was still very sick, but if you're in your body, at least you can do something about that. At 4 o'clock in the morning, I felt prompted to turn on a small television that was over my bed, the hospital, part of the hospital equipment. I will never forget the comfort of a voice I heard. I recognised it straight away. It was Brother Copeland. And he had a friend actually with him, Bill Winston, and the two of them were chatting away about Genesis chapter 2. And it says there that when God made man, he breathed into him and man became a living soul. But actually what they were saying was the rabbis teach it slightly differently. In the Hebrew, they say it says that God breathed into man and he became a speaking spirit. My spirit's good. It's not my spirit that's sick, it's just my body. And I'm a speaking spirit. So I need to say something here. I dangled my 2 thin yellow legs that had sort of just deteriorated terribly over the bed. I hardly made it to a bathroom. I got in there. I saw my image for the first time, I think. I didn't recognise this yellow, wrinkled, thin, sick man. And that image spoke to me and it said, you're going to die. But I knew I was a speaking spirit. And I said, he's the health of my countenance. He's the lifter up of my head. And liver, in Jesus' name, you will work 100%. That's all I did. I'd said it. You know, from that moment, my liver started to work. And a few days went by, they wanted to make sure but I was fine. You know, afterwards the Lord said to me, if you hadn't have spoken, I'd done everything I could. You had to speak. And I learned that. I learned that off the Kenneth Copeland program that morning. Saved my life, got me well, healed me. 7 weeks later, I went to my own doctor, and she had a report on her desk, looked about 2 inches thick. She's on a swivel chair, and she turned around and she looked at me and she said, "Do you know something? Your liver is 100%. Exactly the words that I'd spoken. You get what you say. The word of faith is something that God gave us to change our circumstances so that we live the blessed life.